So many people think that, if I want to practice, I need to block out a certain amount of time, maybe 20 minutes or maybe even 10. But I'd like to encourage you to think of it in a slightly different way, in the sense that you adopt this approach where you do mini meditations many times a day. Like I call it the 3 M's. Mini meditations many times. And actually, it's the same as what we're doing. Because what we're doing right now is like paying attention to the phrases as we say it, then our mind drifts off and it comes back again. So that's one mini meditation that's finished, and then another mini meditation that we're starting again whenever we come back. So our 30 minutes of meditation really has been a whole series of mini meditations, interrupted by our mind wandering, which is normal, by the way. So if you think of it that way, or if you realize that that's how it is, then doing 1 minute or 2 minutes of this mini meditations whenever you have the 2 minutes spare is the same thing. And if you do it like 15 times during the day, then you've done half an hour of meditation. And it's probably likely that those 2 minutes you would be paying attention more, you'd be more focused than you would be in a whole 30-minute session. So I'd like to encourage you to try that and see how that works for you. And that helps to bring the practice into your daily lives, rather than saying, I'll do it just in the morning or in the evening, and then the rest of the day is just your mind just like scattered everywhere and you don't feel grounded. But if you do this, then you can feel grounded at least certain points during the day. And one of the ways that I try to do it is when I go walking with the dogs, and usually I will meet people walking or jogging, exercising or bicycling, coming the other way. And usually I try to keep this kind of very simple loving kindness practice, like may you be safe, may you be well. Or if I'm alone, then may I be safe, may I be well. Then when I see someone, whether they're walking, jogging, on a motorbike or in a car, then I'll just try and direct these loving kindness wishes towards them, like may you be safe, may you be well, until they disappear. Keep repeating until they disappear. So I find that really helps me to also be more grounded and also to deepen my sense of connection with everyone, because we're all basically in the same boat. We may be having different challenges, but we're all in the same boat. We're all on this planet Earth, and this planet Earth isn't going anywhere. We're all here. So try that and see how that works out for you. So to our conclusion of our discussion on understanding and coping with anxiety. So unless you've been living in isolation in a cave or in the forest over the last year, you have noticed that we've all faced a greater sense of uncertainty and anxiety due to the pandemic. And if you're one of those people, then don't worry, you're not alone. I think many people have a heightened sense of anxiety and perhaps fear also of getting COVID. So I also feel that, because nowadays, I try to minimize my going out, and whenever I'm out, I'm very aware of, the social distancing, and whether people are wearing their masks properly or not. So, it's kind of adds to another layer of thing that you have to be kind of super aware of, so that you don't put yourself at risk, especially when I haven't got the vaccine yet. So when we have all this thing that has gone on for such an extended period, then it can't be very easy to deal with. So one of the things I like to say before I continue is that if you are having chronic anxiety or severe anxiety or panic attacks, then please get some help from a mental health professional. It's not something that we should hide, perhaps, because there is a certain amount of stigma, especially in Asian cultures, with mental health issues, and actually there is nothing wrong with seeking help. Mental health is as important as physical health, and we need to realize and accept that, we're in the 21st century, so let's understand that we're not living in the Stone Ages. So if you do have those issues, please get some professional help. So with what I would like to share with you tonight, I hope that it'll alleviate some of you who are suffering from some, occasional or maybe regular anxieties. I don't know. But hopefully we can deal with that more positively so that you can recognize what it is that causes your anxiety and then learn how to help yourself to actually deal with it in a more positive way. So before we go on, I'd just like to recap what we talked about over the last 3 sessions. First of all, is that anxiety and fear combine to result in anxiety. Now, anxiety can develop into a habit. We can think of it as a karmic habit or self-reinforcing habit loop. So understanding what brings on your anxiety is an important first step. That means what triggers it. Then when you're triggered, how do you behave? And what the result is. So seeing this trigger, behavior, result loop is very important. For example, sometimes anxiety can trigger a habit loop like this, but it also can be a result of the habit loop. So a trigger may be that you feel very demotivated at work. Then what do? You just kind of pick up your tool of mass distraction, weapon of mass distraction, your handphone, and you just scroll through the news or whatever, the latest COVID figures, or then the result is that you feel more anxious about the state of the world. But perhaps more damaging to yourself is this anxiety habit, which triggers more anxiety. For example, you feel anxious, that's the trigger, something causes you to feel anxious. Then what happens? You start to worry. Oh, what's wrong with me? What could go wrong? Where is this anxiety going to go, and what's going to lead to? Then you become more anxious because of it. And then this kind of feeds upon itself, and then you get caught in this, never-ending anxiety loop. But to become aware of this, the thing that kickstarts our anxiety, we need to be mindfully aware, to bring our mindful awareness to bear on our experience. So being mindful and curious about the experience. How does it feel when we're anxious? What are the body sensations? What's our breathing like? How does it actually physically feel? Is it pleasant, unpleasant? So our usual reaction is try to push it away or to suppress the feeling so that, oh, I'm okay, Outwardly you might look okay. But as I think all of us, or many of us, have experienced, when we try to fight it, this feeling of anxiety just gets stronger, and we can't tell ourselves to stop feeling anxious, as we talked about before. Our body feelings, our pretty much controlled by our primitive brain, the amygdala, and they, supersede our logical thinking. That's why we can rarely, if ever, tell ourselves to stop worrying or stop being anxious, and then it just goes away just like that. So this is the second stage, to become or to bring your mindful awareness to the experience. What happens when these habits start to kick in? When I was at uni, I'd like to share a story. I started smoking cigarettes because all the friends I hung around with all smoked, so they all passed cigarettes around. So to be part, to look cool and to be part of the crowd, and to feel like I was liked, then I also started smoking with them. And it continued into my working life after graduation. I knew it wasn't good for my health. I wanted to stop. So I tried quite a few times. And I managed to do it for some short periods, maybe a week, 2 weeks or whatever, but I always started up again. So I was always stopping smoking, but I never was able to stop it completely. Then one day, I was just sitting at the kitchen table and nothing else to do. I picked up my cigarette, lit it, and started smoking. And then I suddenly noticed it just didn't taste very good. So I thought, that's funny. I never felt this before. So I thought maybe there's something wrong with the cigarette. So I put it out and took another one out of the box and lit it and smoked. And it tasted just as unpleasant. Didn't taste good, So I thought maybe there's something wrong with me, that's maybe my taste buds or my something, maybe I'm not very well or whatever, I can't, enjoy this cigarette. So I put that out and then left it for a while, and then later on that day I came back and I was very curious at that time, is it going to taste like bad? It tastes bad like before? And then I lit up and it did taste bad. It didn't taste very good. It just tasted like, I can't even remember, but it was this very, very kind of like burnt taste or something in my mouth. And then I thought, wow, this is very interesting, why is it like that? So for the next few days throughout the week, I tried again. And each time, it didn't make me feel good. It just tasted terrible. Then I realized, then it became very easy. I just didn't want that unpleasant taste in my mouth anymore. So I just kind of, without even really using my willpower, so what they call willpower, I just stopped. And I didn't smoke after that. And the other interesting thing I found out or discovered was that whenever I was around people who smoked, I really didn't like the smell of the cigarette smoke anymore. So I was like, didn't hang out with people that smoked or tried to kind of distance myself physically away from them. So that's very interesting because even though I didn't know at that time, I became more mindfully aware of what cigarettes really tasted like. Before, I guess I didn't. It was because it was always with a group of people. We were enjoying ourselves and always smoking with a drink, a pint and a cig, as they used to call it, or coffee and a cig. So you're always kind of in this social situation with smoking, and you're never really so fully aware of the actual experience of it. So that is the kind of third stage in this dealing with this anxiety habit is to bring a mindful awareness and an interested curiosity to the anxiety or the unpleasant experiences instead of trying to just push them away or suppress them as we normally do. And it does take a bit of practice and perseverance. Then the science tells us it takes about 10 to 15 times of being mindfully aware of these experiences before it spurs us on to modify our habits. So I'd like to share with you a pretty inspiring story. Like one of our Zen practitioners always firmly believed in staying healthy naturally. Then the COVID pandemic arrived at the same time that she was going through some really big challenges in her life. So having to stay in and not being able to keep herself busy with work as usual really forced her to look at what this health and happiness really meant to her. So when she did that, to really look and be mindful of what all these things were, then she had some deep insights, and a transformation resulted from all of this. And in the end, she was able to say, oh, I'm really thankful for the COVID and the difficult challenges, because it allowed me to arrive at a place where I was more joyful and more content. And that is actually wonderful. But that's what mindfulness and mindful awareness gives us, that we're able to actually kind of zoom in on the actual experience, the reality of the experience, and actually know, not just think about or understand, but actually know what the experience is like and what it really is. So instead of just worrying and worrying and worrying, someone said, worrying is like sitting in a rocking chair. It keeps you busy, but you're not getting anywhere. So that's what happens. I don't think there's so far there's not any scientific evidence or any scientific studies which shows that worrying actually leads to a positive result. So to recap, the 3 stages are this. The first stage is to map out your habits. Write it down if it helps. What triggers you, how you behave when you're triggered, and what the results are. Then the second stage is to be mindful of and aware of these anxiety habits and when they occur. Like when they occur during the day, what is the situation? Then you have some awareness of what's going on. And then the third stage is to bring your mindful awareness and an interested curiosity to the experience. So what do the results of, say, anxiety feel like in the body? Pleasant, unpleasant? What is it? Tightening? Your stomach tightens up, or your chest feels tight. How does it feel? Is it pleasant? Is it unpleasant? And when you become more aware of this unpleasant feelings every time anxiety appears, it becomes like a negative thing, just like my smoking tasted bad, I wasn't enjoying it anymore. But instead of just trying to push it away and kind of ignore it or suppress it, you are actually realizing, oh, this doesn't feel very good. And maybe that will spur you on to do something else which is less unpleasant or more interesting. Like, for example, what would you choose? Anxiety or curiosity? I would definitely choose curiosity. So you have a choice. When you are mindfully aware, when you're not aware of your thoughts or your feelings, then they control you. But when you are mindfully aware of your thoughts and your feelings, then you have a chance of controlling them, or you have a choice of what you want to do. So another practice, there are many practices which support our ability to cope with anxiety. Breathing is another one, learning to breathe slowly when you're feeling anxious. And I've talked about that in quite great detail in previous classes. The other is what we did in the first half an hour of tonight, and it is loving kindness or metta meditation practice. And what this does is that it increases your resilience to anxiety and stress. It also improves your sense of connection and your sense of compassion towards others. So these are the practices that we can do to help us better cope with anxiety, but also these 3 stages now. This is very interesting, and if you want to explore it in greater depth and detail, then I strongly recommend reading a book by Dr. Judson Brewer. He's a PhD and a medical doctor, and now is at Brown University, one of the top 5 universities in America, doing work on this and research on this. And he wrote a book called Unwinding Anxiety, and you can get it and read it. I'll drop a link in the comments for you. But definitely, if you are suffering from chronic anxiety, or you're finding it's getting worse and developing into panic attacks, please get help from a mental health professional. It's very important to take care of your mental health. It is, like I said before, as important as your physical health. Now, one of the things that we are accustomed to is instant gratification. Most of us want a magic bullet, and usually we can pretty much get what we want. Even if we're stuck at home, we want to eat something, we crave for some food, all we have to do is just call it up on the smartphone and some courier will deliver it. So, however, this taking care of anxiety doesn't really work like that. It does take time, because we've developed this anxiety habit over many, many years, and it's a fairly ingrained habit. Maybe you tend to worry, like some people say, I'm a worrier, and that's me, and they think that I'll be a worrier for the rest of my life. But actually, you don't have to be a worrier. You can actually change the habit. That's the beauty of practice. But it does take time and practice and patience. So it doesn't just fix itself in 1 or 2 sessions. But my experience is that many people are fairly impatient, because we're used to getting things instantly. And if it doesn't work after the first few times, they'll give it up, thinking that, it won't work for me. So if you're one of these people, then all I can say to you is that please be patient. If you persevere and are patient, then it will, hopefully, it will work. So that's all I'd like to share with you tonight. That's the final conclusion to our discussions on anxiety and how to understand and cope with it. I hope you'll come and join us again next week for some more practice. And in the meantime, please take care of your health and stay well. Thank you.